this conversation very timely because even the changing times have actually shaped the landscapes and how we are actually showing up. So, as we get to share, let's start by asking, how are you feeling tonight? Let's use our chat box. How are you feeling tonight? Because some of us are totally running on empty. So, this conversation is around navigating emotional exhaustion at work. So we were guided on emotional exhaustion. So, and what we know is that we have to work to it. And in a world where we celebrate productivity, people are just showing up. You're dragging yourself to those rooms. You're, sometimes struggling even to make connection and contact with people. You're doing what you're meant to do because we are going to look at the turnaround time when you got an email and when you responded, did that phone ring 3 times and you are not picking it, trying to beat some deadlines. It is 5th of the month and by today result, if you have not sent your report, you're already late. But who are you emotionally? What is fueling you? Is it the threat that if you don't perform, is it because it is that time of the year where you have to give the reports for funding to come, or are you looking for those funds that are not, they're dwindling, they're not coming, and you're running this, or maybe a startup or your business that requires you to keep generating money? And when you ask yourself how mental health challenges in workplace look like, by then they don't come as the people you think they're really shouting, or someone who is really admitted at Chiromo Hospital or Madari or wherever. There are those people who tell you, I am just feeling beat. I don't feel like doing anything. You know, I just feel irritable. I don't feel motivated. You might have seen staff who are very, you know, up to task every day. You someone you can count on, and all of a sudden something looks very off. So the loss of motivation. Sometimes people just feel disconnected with what they're supposed to do, and if you have to, if it gets to Sunday, and you imagine tomorrow is Monday, and your heart goes into palpitation, anxiety, you don't sleep well, there's a problem. Because that means we are just in the cycle of surviving, we are not living. So, last time when we started with a check in. How are you really doing? How is everyone doing in this meeting? Sheila, I may not be able to see the comments. You may read for me. How are we doing today?
So far, no comments have been sent.
Maybe you look to the comment section. People, how are we doing today? So let's check in. How are we doing today? Okay, rather, how are you? How are you doing today? Jay, Sheila, Samsung, iPhone. How are you doing today?
We are doing well, and we thank you for this opportunity to get to know much about our workplaces. And we hope everyone is okay. And we thank God for this evening. We want to hear from you, the seniors who have been to workplaces for a quite longer period of time, because we seek for much guidance from you. We, as the young people, the Gen Zs who are still struggling to get into the job market.
Thank you very much. So, if you're here and you've been long enough working, we are here to share information. So, thank you very much for sharing how you are. Another check in.
Daniel, you can read the chat.
Yes, so I can see Winnie has said going through a tough moment yesterday and today, but hanging in there. Sheila has said, I'm tired, a lot of headache. Emily doing very horrible. Bramwin, myself, I'm doing well, although pressure of filing 2025 returns. Winfred has said she's tired. Petronila, I'm well, I thank God. I'm emotionally and psychologically fit. Lorna, personally, I can say one day at a time. And Petronila, again, despite a few challenges here and there. I
Now,
think
I like,
she's, yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you
And thank you
so much. And thank you.
for checking in and saying how you're feeling, because now at face value, may not be able to tell, are we feeling tired because it's Thursday heading to Friday? Are we tired because life has given us a beating? Are we tired because we have to handle so much? Are we tired because we can't picture how tomorrow looks like? But whatever it is, we are here. And emotionally, sometimes we are carrying burdens that somebody else may never even understand. And sometimes we assume we are okay until we are no longer okay. So, one of the things that I have seen very interesting recently is, and this is something I had mentioned earlier, and I'll quickly brush through it and say, we come to work the same person who left home. So usually there is no two personalities. You will carry the same. If there are struggles at home, you're likely to drag them to work. And if there are problems at work, you're likely to drag them home because it's the same you. And this may affect sometimes how you show up for your family, how you show up for yourself, and even how people perceive you. And sometimes you may be very defensive because we are so overwhelmed, even we don't have time to process sometimes feedback we are given, not because people don't like you, not because people are against you, but because they have seen a change and they're trying to pick it out and illuminate it on you. But because already the capacity is zero, you realize that you become so defensive until people be like, okay, because I do not want you reacting, or I don't want you shouting, or I don't want you withdrawing, they stop telling you. Sometimes it gets to a point and we feel, I wish somebody would tell me when I started doing this. But sometimes also our reactions make people want to stay away. So let's look at how life sometimes transforms who we are. And comparison is a key thing. And I know we have talked about this where we say, when we come to the workplaces, we are all very different. For example, we might have joined the working place, Jay and me, at the same time. And maybe 2 years later, I got a promotion and Jay did not get the promotion. And now Jay may look at it and feel, why is it that Nancy is getting noticed when I'm not getting noticed? Two things can happen. Jay may feel like they're not good enough, or he's not good enough, or he'll never get noticed, or may assume there is favor being done to this particular person. And you have seen workplaces where sometimes your own success grants you, your own, yes, your own inputs grants you success, then you go to the next limit. But then you can get very damaging input from people who say you're being favored, or you are a girlfriend or boyfriend, I don't know to who. So sometimes people say things that behind the scenes, they make you really get hurt, and that can damage you emotionally, because some of these comparison we do at workplaces, sometimes we want to drag other people down, because if I'm down, you got to be where I am. So if we are not moving together, then we got to be at the same place. And you can imagine how damaging some of these conversations or reputations around people who have worked so hard to build a name can look like. So sometimes the workplace can bring in a lot of pressure. And when we talk about workplace toxicity, I want you today to look at the conversation you'll have here, reflect it on you. Don't look at the people in the office. You could probably be the person we need to talk to. What are the things that you say about other people? Are you the person who really empathizes? Are you really the type of person who supports? Are you the type of person who will always check in with people and say, hi, Jay, how are you doing today? Or you're the leader who will be like, me, I'm not you're not going to be like, sometimes people use very uncouth names, yeah, uncouth statements. So somebody looks sullen and and looking with the drone, and you're telling them, so this is workplace, we are not going to pet each other, so you better do what you're supposed to do. And probably that person just lost somebody very close to them. They were planning and thinking how they'll approach you, but already you have already shown them, stay with your problem. So emotionally, I am already coming carrying my own burdens. Now you look at me, but because of whatever other issues that you also have, because every one of us is carrying something, then you do not have that empathy. So you as a person here, how do you show up? How well do you support others? Actually, would you even notice when your friends really need you? You know, if you look at your other peers, so you joined at the same time, Jay has started driving, I still can't afford a car because as much as I have been promoted, I have a lot of responsibilities. I have a sick parent, I have children I'm supporting. I'm probably a firstborn who is carrying the burden, financial burden and social burden in my home. So a car at that point, I don't even have that money. Then Jay gets a car, and I'm thinking, at my position, Jay cannot be getting a car before me. So what does the pressure make me do? Take a loan on top of my financial pressure to get a car so that me and Jay can be on the same page. Socially, there is also some dynamics that have really changed. Look at how people the kind of allow me to use this statement as much as this is a professional meeting where people have these relationships where you're married, you already have a home, then you're at the workplace, you have workplace relations, and because of the pressure to keep up, you're spending so much on the workplace relationships that your home is already struggling. So already you bring in the burden of your home. Of course, there'll be strife at home. You'll be financially affected because to finance some of these behaviors and things that we put on ourselves, they require money. So over time, the things that you really want to make yourself happy end up taking so much and away from you. Again, how do you stand back and say enough? And no, we say it's a complete statement so that you stop affecting your own life because the person affected here is you because finances are not working for you. The relationships are not working. If you imagine you have children, you're not having time for them. So these comparisons sometimes can be very draining. This keeping up with the Joneses, you want to be seen with the most beautiful, with the most elegant, with the most tall, dark, and handsome, and you're spending what you should be actually planning for. Now, imagine when a job cut comes. Where do you start? Because you have no savings, you have not even planned, your mind is everywhere, or your family breaks. All this will come to the workplace. So, what pressure do you feel most? Is it because you have to perform? So you have to, sometimes the pressures we have at work is because also we are expected to deliver in a certain type of way. So are you ready? Do you present yourself fully? And I'm talking to you. Do you present yourself fully at work to perform? You have KPIs because the performance appraisal will tell you where you are, and you're the leader. When do you equip your staff so that they're able to perform to the expectation? As they do that, how do you look at them as both individuals and as employees so that you're able to tell when they're struggling, whether they need coaching, whether they actually need a leave of absence, whether, sometimes just picking out and checking in with your staff will almost always tell you where they are. Sometimes there are people who just ask, by the way, for a while, I haven't seen you do one, two, three. How are you? And the only thing they can do is break down because before they even start talking to you, nobody has actually even asked them, how are you doing? Yet they have a lot they will need to unpack. Finances will never be enough. Are you planning? Are you planning for tomorrow? Are you saving? Because we'll say we don't even have enough to save. How are your behaviors around money? This is a whole other conversation. How are your behaviors around money? Are you even planning such that you're not overspending without knowing what is ahead? For example, if you plan to go to school and you have kids at home, if you spend these finances on this side, if you're not being sponsored, how does this affect the home? Have you put contingency that when I'm doing this is going to happen so that if anything happens ahead, you're not left drained? Are you just picking loans because you have a pay slip or you have access to funds, to credit, and before you realize it, your pay slip cannot even sustain yourself even your own transport or your own fuel? How is your behavior around money? Recognition. Some of us will do anything, even if it means stepping on everyone else's toes, for us to be recognized. Now, the others who work so hard but don't get recognized. All these pressures, in a way, you feel, and that's where the motivation goes. So those who work very hard don't get motivated, don't get noticed or motivated or acknowledged. They will carry the burden of, why do I even need to try? And that's also can weigh some people down. So half the time they are present doing nothing. That's what we call presentism, or absent because half the time they feel they don't want to be in that environment. Perfection. We want to be keeping up with everything that's happening to us. This comparison is something that people consciously don't understand how much it is impactful. And sometimes we don't even talk about it because we want to defend even when we know it is going to have an effect on us. So today we are going to look at connection. So who do you talk to when work becomes overwhelming? Who do you talk to? On the chat box, who do we talk to when the work becomes overwhelming? Our partners? Our spouses? Who are you talking to? Your children? You're telling them how some of the kids get to know your boss by name before they meet them. Who are you talking to? You can read for me if there are some comments coming in there. Who do you talk to when work becomes overwhelming? Sheila, Daniel, anyone?
Someone has said they go to the gym.
Go to the gym. That's a good one. Another one?
Yes. Yes, go to the gym. Another comment has come in. I call myself an internal meeting.
Okay.
That's from Regina. Winnie has said she talks to her friends
Talks to her friends. That's good.
or a coach. Yeah, or a coach.
Or a coach. Great.
Brian has said he meditates.
Meditates.
Winnie has talked about it again. She's added or a therapist.
Or a therapist.
Judy has talked about she talks to her friend and pray about it, and she prays about it. For Sheila, she talked about the color or journal. Bravin, he talks to the partner, to their partner in crime. Lorna talked to a friend and my siblings.
Beautiful.
Those are the comments.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I'm just wondering, how come nobody shares with their spouses? I have had a partner in crime, but I didn't hear about spouses. Anybody? I missed that. Now, who would be the first person to notice when you're not okay? And that is why I've asked, how come no one is talking about our partners or our spouses? Who will be the first person? Type on the chat box. Who is the first person who notices when you're not okay? Your children, perhaps? Because you're either irritable or something? Who notices when you're not okay? Your spouse, because you'll have headaches? Who notices when you're not okay? Are there some responses coming? Will your boss notice if you're not okay?
There are comments that have come in.
Carry on.
So from also the previous question you had, Kate said she sets a quiet time. Elvis Okumu said, can I speak about it because I feel like it's affecting me in a way. So I think we'll give Elvis time to maybe speak on it. So I'll first finish on the comments. Vanilla to my friend and spouse, Winnie. She said she doesn't have a spouse yet. Chennai, I don't have one. Tranila, she shared. She talked about her friend and spouse. Cherop, most spouses are frenemies. That's a good one. Kialo Maureen, work for me becomes unbearable or exhausting when I start to lose focus on the main objective or goal that got me to work in the first place. Does that make sense? That's from Kialo Maureen. From Brian, he's talked about a close friend. From Lorna, my siblings and my friend. Those are the comments that we have. Oh, and one last one from Candy. My Toto notices though I can't talk to about the stress directly, so they have a quiet time or talk to their mom. The last one, which has just come in, from Karen Okutu, speaking for others, work spouse. And then she has highlighted the work spouse comment. So that's all.
So what she's saying is that if she has to speak to somebody is a work spouse. I talked about that in the comparison section where this has become a norm. I never used to know about it as much, but it's becoming almost a norm. And guys, watch out. Elvis, I don't know whether this is a point you wanted to speak, but before you do, Charlo said something about not having goals. Read that for me again. I'm not able to see the chat section, sorry.
No problem. So I'll read it again. So for Charlo, let me just give me a minute. She talked about, Maureen talked about work for me. Maureen Charlo talked about work for me becomes unbearable or exhausting when I start to lose focus on the main objective or goal that got me to work in the first place. Does that make sense? That's the question
Now,
she asked.
Now, the approach to that question can take many directions because if the kind of work you do is not goal directed, definitely at one point you live and lose the motivation because that's the reason why you have KPIs at your workplace is so that you're guided on what you are supposed to deliver or the deliverables. Structured systems usually make you know what you're meant to deliver, and that is why the KPIs have their appraisals. Now, if the workplace is where you're meant to do almost anything and everything, and you're given this work before you finish, you're given this other work. Now, that can be a bit confusing, and depending with whether you're a very structured person or the workplace is motivating or there is support, it can actually be take your attention away from the things that you want to achieve. So here it could be personal, it could be systems. And personal, I mean, are you structured? Have you done a task list on what is it you're supposed to deliver? Or are you supposed to be just doing emails before you realize there are tasks that are not done? Or is it that the workplace lacks systems and structures where you have either too many people you report to, at the end of the day you don't know what you're supposed to deliver on. So I think that's how I'd look at it. I hope that answers Charlo. In case of different, you may ask later. For Elvis, is it something you wish to share?
Yes, I thank you for this opportunity.
Please carry on.
Yes, the challenge has been this. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in human resource management with IT from Maseno University in the year 2024, December. But before that graduation period, I was supposed to have graduated in the year 2023. I was involved in some accident. So I have been applying jobs, but unfortunately I haven't been getting interviews. And God willing, early this year, I got an opportunity with the Public Service Commission to serve as an intern under the cohort 8. So they posted me somewhere which I don't want to mention for the privacy. Maybe I think it is kind of ethical. So getting posted for the early career point of your life as someone who wants to grow, you have got a lot of expectation to learn and to do more and to learn. So I found myself in a workplace whereby I am demanding to be given work and to be taught. But this is causing chaos in a way. Some people most, a good percentage, they are not willing like to help me. They feel like I'm a threat to their positions, which I'm not. What can I do about this?
Thank you so much, Elvis. And from what you've said, there's a word you've used, demanding. So I'm not sure whether it has gotten to a point you feel like they have not been supportive enough. But at the same time, with your letter of appointment or where you are assigned, does it tell you who you report to, who is your supervisor?
Yes.
And how does your supervisor support you in this?
I once explained something of this kind to her,
Mm,
but she told me that she was going for some workshop. Will I come
mhm,
and act on it? So when she came back,
mhm,
the only thing that she requested me, that
mhm,
she wanted me to explain three things I have learned since I joined the corporation. So I've
mhm,
been feeling like
mhm,
I am I am not getting what I want because all the time I'm there, my
mhm.
work is just to do dispatch this letter, not this. That's the only thing. But I expect to learn some key things like data analysis, performance management, payroll. Yeah.
That
So
department allows you to have those specific areas that you've mentioned.
yes, but
Now,
not
sorry.
getting exposed into these things. So I feel like I'm being wasted.
I understand and I hear your feelings and how you feel that you're not being very well engaged. But the question again would be: have you had another sitting with your supervisor for them to understand that I appreciate the far that I've been able to do? Would you consider maybe seconding me on this other area? How has that conversation been like?
So that is where I said something of that kind.
Mm,
But one of the senior employees there said,
mhm, mm,
hawa watu wa PSC, that is the term alitumia,
mhm.
hawa watu wa PSC kwani wanataka aje? Si watulie, sisi ndo tunawapanga hii kitu, watu awapeleke haraka.
Now, Elvis, it's hard to hearing this from you because it's a very practical example that you're giving. But then, as they state that, do they refuse to give you the job when they say that, or they will say that and decide you stay where you are?
So the job that I'm being given is little for me, and I feel like I am past that. I think those are the things that by now, even if I compare it with the organization whereby I did my industrial attachment, I feel
Mm.
like the attachment was even better than the internship kind of it.
Now, Elvis, I understand one of the things that I've talked about when it comes to, and if there's a HR in the house, someone is speaking. If there's anyone else who can help in giving Elvis some tips, because ideally some of the places will require that you follow the protocols that are there and try to sit with that person until they understand that I really need to feel more supported and give me more roles so that I'm able to learn. Now, the other times you also have to manage, like just try as much as to make friendships with some of these people who probably feel like you're a threat in a way that they feel that they can accommodate you. If this doesn't work, then the system issues crop up and affect how we show up, and it will really always be demotivating to always want to show up. But I would ask you that you try again and sit with your supervisor, and without making them feel like you're unhappy, because remember also they hold they are the ones to open for you those doors. Sit with them and tell them again, I'm requesting, be specific on the areas, because by now you understand the people you're working with, the attitudes and all that. The places that you feel you can be accommodated, ask, this is where I would want you to support me, and see whether that is going to take you there, because some places you cannot jump the reporting process. And again, you're an intern, so there could be those kind of, and that is why I'm saying all of us have a role to play to make our workplaces become more comfortable. And Elvis, I may not have all the answers for for your problem, but I'm just giving you on top of my mind what I think may work for you for now. I don't know whether there's anyone who is lifting their hand to say something to Elvis. If there's anyone, some tips that he can use.
So can I go ahead kidogo tu? Kuna something I wanted to, I was forgetting.
Okay.
Yes, so when I spoke out this, one of these supervisors the following day he asked me to list down the various parts of the human resource functions that I am interested that and I want to learn. But before she was asking me to do this the following day. The previous day, she told me at my face that as an intern, there are some things that I cannot allow you to interact with. But here, this is someone, me, when I was joining this corporation, I signed the oath of secrecy. And I believe even if I did not sign that, I should act with professionalism and integrity. And I know I will always be liable for any confidential information that I might have revealed to anyone else concerning the work processes. So,
I hear you, Elvis. And yes, those are the bureaucratic things that you have to deal with sometimes at work. And you may need to ask further questions with a lot of humility. And I'll use a lot of humility because sometimes that is what you need to get some of this access to. You sit again with them and say, so what is that one thing that is available for me that I can actually be able to touch on and work on? If they give you a day, if they allow you an hour, then you're glad that you are able to get closer there. And maybe Jay, this is a client that as someone you may need to speak to after this session. So Elvis, so that you get a little more input from Jay. So thank you very much for that. And for those who talked about the workplace relations, who listens to you and get to know when you have problems, if they're helping you to grow, be very careful with all the other uh, um, enmeshment that you get yourself with, because this will give you another emotional stresses to deal with. Isolation usually will worsen emotional exhaustion, where you feel you're not heard, you decide to withdraw. So have support systems. We have said some workplace friendships for people who you trust can really work. I love that some people go for therapy or counseling. Have your family and community. Don't For those who are saying spouses are frenemies, then you must have a place where you have a sounding board, because once in a while you need to have someone who listens to you and somebody who you can tell what you're going through, so that you're able to unpack. Compassion, when all things are happening, like for Elvis, you need to be kind to yourself. So what are some of the things that you tell yourself? How positive are you? If you are talking to your friend, would you speak the same way you speak to your friend when they are going through challenges and issues? If you made a mistake, are you so critical with yourself that you even don't eat? You're very angry at yourself. Why? How could I do that? How could I make such a silly mistake? And that can actually make you very unkind to yourself. But if your friend does that, you actually will be there telling them what? No, don't beat yourself to that. I mean, it's just human. But with yourself, and this also reflects even in your personal relationships. When something goes wrong at home, you ruminate over it, you beat yourself over it, you want to say 100 sorries, and they still don't get enough. So sometimes being very compassionate with yourself also helps you to realize, yes, today I've made a mistake. What is the lesson? What am I picking from it today, so that it makes me a better person tomorrow? So some of us, we are very harsh with ourselves, But we need to practice a bit of kindness, because the more you self criticize yourself, the more you start feeling not good enough. And most of the time, you want to be checking with other people. Do you think this is so okay? Do you think that what I've done is good? And wanting to be validated all the time, we can actually take away your self esteem, because unless somebody tells you this is good, you don't allow yourself to be very kind to yourself, feeling like I can't do it. I mean, I'm not very well educated, or I didn't go this far, or I don't come from that background, or I'm not noticed by the management. Sometimes it is you getting out yourself and just doing it. People will never know what you have, what you can, until you're able to get out of your shell and prove yourself. Some people will get coaches, some people will get mentors, some people may not be able to do that. But the more you feel you're capable of doing something, allow yourself the grace to try. The worst that can happen is you not getting it right, but there'll be a lesson. There'll be something that you learn, because somebody will give you feedback. But then when you don't try, nobody will ever know your capacity. No one will ever know your interest. And that is why even promotions will bypass you. Why? You're not curious. You don't seem curious, but you're just scared. Sometimes we are scared because our nature and nurture. We were brought up in very harsh, critical families where we were made to believe that we are so small, that we are incapable. We were never complimented. We were always shouted at. We were always told then growing up, we still carry that with us. Sometimes it is our spouses, or our partners, or our friends who call us out even when they should be congratulating us. They never see anything good with you. They think you're doing this so that you get noticed, so you want to make yourself small, so that you're not said. You want your boss to notice you, so that's why you're doing this. So you're wearing like this so that you show up like this. So you're trying to be. So then you start making yourself, allowing other people to define the potential that you have. Now, imposter syndrome is something people speak about all the time, and you will have it anyway in any position you're given. You will even get so panicky given some tasks to do. Allow yourself to do them. Allow yourself to start. Allow yourself to try. Make the mistakes. In making those mistakes, you will learn. In the learning, you get to do your self improvement. Fear of failure, you will never know if you can fail if you don't try. If you're in business, self-employed, you will make so many mistakes that are financial in nature, and they will cost you. And you do not want to leave your bed for the next 2 days, but you realize a bill has to be paid, so you're gonna leave. So what do you tell yourself when you're leaving? That's just people think I'm very, like, you're thinking your employees are thinking you're such a lousy manager of funds. You're thinking your spouse, you don't even want them to know, because they will call you out and they'll not be very kind to it. You're fearing of even being audited. But the thing is, if it has happened, what are the lessons? So the fear of failure sometimes stops us from getting to know how best we are in things that we can do. We admire other people and say, I wish I could be Nancy. But if Nancy was to tell you her story of where she is, you would actually be like, wow. And I tell people, have been a spectacular failure. And those failures have defined the person I've become today. And I always say, if I didn't attempt, I would never be where I am today. Emotional perfectionism, that everything has to be aligned before I actually present it. Sometimes you will never always get it all right, because somebody must always give you an input. And that is why we have our managers or supervisors giving us feedback. So if you're employed, always see somebody who you think is good enough and kind enough to coach you, to work with you. Like in Elvis' example, he's lacking that person who can actually handhold him and just make it easy for him to learn the system processes and the new systems that they have, so that he can feel empowered. Now, you as a leader, do you handhold other people? Ama, you have your favorites. You choose and you think that is good enough, that's not. The people sometimes we push aside, all they needed is that check-in question. How are you and how would you need to be helped? So we always have a role, because where we're able to support other people, we're able to bring them out of the imposter syndrome. We allow them to fail and support them even as they become better. And self-compassion is not weakness. So it is an emotional survival. So from whatever you do, whatever happens to your life, please be compassionate with yourself. Allow yourself to learn and relearn, because there will always be that room to do that. So are you carrying any unresolved stressors because you have a very difficult boss who poorly communicates, some passive aggressive statements that are being made in the office, workplace bullying, and I've talked about this in the workplace. So, when you continuously carry some conflicts that are not resolved, this stress, you will carry it for a very long time. Leaders, find a way to make conflict resolution as a very easy process to be done. Individuals, how do you make other people know that there is a problem that you need addressed? Because somehow we must find a way, because we have our hierarchies like the supervisors or the team leaders or the managers, because sometimes when things are not being solved at the supervisory level, they can go to the managerial level. So those unresolved workplace issues, if they you keep carrying them, they may really, really, really burden you. Sometimes you may just need to step out, and if you have a medical cover, go talk to someone else who will help you to unpack and process. And I've said I talk to a
Amen.
lot of executive level
Pole bwana,
managers.
nimepigiwa simu mtoto, watoto wanafaa watoke shule,
The,
nikakimbia
the
nikasa.
fact the fact the fact that we have to keep checking on ourselves, because the economic situations are changing very, very fast, and the leaders have to keep making decisions. They also have their own personal lives to lead. The same way you will get affected by them is the same way you also affect them. So all of us have a responsibility. For those leaders who we are looking up to you to give us good workplaces, also work on yourself. Are you having your personal biases that are stopping you from seeing what's happening in your workplace? So how do we cope when we are going through all this emotional exhaustion? Now, where do you run to when life becomes emotionally heavy? I like the people who say they go to the gym, others do meditation, others do journaling, but others will do it in a different way. Alcohol misuse. For somebody who was not drinking and all of a sudden they're excessively drinking, they're numbing their emotions. They're trying to deal with something they're not able to deal with. You drink alcohol, you become sober, the problem is still there. So this will just be financially draining you. It will be taking away your time of concentration from the work that you need to do. So you need to find a better, healthier way to cope. Some people do emotional eating, and you start feeling like you're adding weight. You also don't like that you're adding weight, but it's way of coping, which can sometimes be a depressive situation. Um, Isolation, where people, when things become too tough, they isolate. With someone who used to be very extroverted, all of a sudden you don't see them in events. And that's why I'm asking, who will ever notice? Who would be the first person to notice if you're not okay? Who would be the first person to notice if you went missing or if you went MIA? Because isolation sometimes doesn't mean I am having a me time. Sometimes it's just saying I am overwhelmed. Who is that person who is going to check out on you? Overworking. Some people, because home environments are not comfortable and conducive, we are running away from home and spending more time in the offices. No wonder the other relationships. Now, this overworking, what does it mean? That you have children who now never get to see you. You never get to interact with them. Saturdays, you're just so exhausted, but even you get irritable when they come close to you. You don't form a bond with your family because you're trying to cope with things happening either at home or at work by running away from one side and being on the other. Now, this endless scrolling, people sometimes say, I just want to be on TikTok for a few minutes. And then 3 hours later, you're still a few minutes on the phone. Now, that endless scrolling, if you look at the productivities hours lost, very high. If it's at the night, the blue light emitted by the phones interferes with what we call the melatonin hormone, the hormone that is supposed to regulate your sleep. So the more you hold that phone when it's supposed to be sleeping time, the more it interferes with your sleeping hours. How will you wake up tomorrow? Exhausted, not well rested, and then you're still expected to deliver as normal. So we need to have the courage to ask for help. We have said, don't wait until you break before you seek support. The stigma for getting help where you're supposed to get it, please know that no one is going to judge you. Sometimes we are own self stigma. We think people will be like, hey, if I go for therapy, they will assume that I'm now lost it. nobody cares, because the day you will not make it, you will even lose that job because of non-performance. So what will stop you from seeking mental health support? Please know that seeking help is strength and not failure. So therefore, what we have said is that change must happen before burnout changes you. And it can change you in so many ways. You become so irritable in the house, I say nobody is talking to you. At work, you're a leader and you're not able to interact with your subjects. So take small breaks. And especially those people who work at the laptop, we say you do the prodromo rule, where you take some time off from what you're working on, the work you're working on the screen every so often, so that you're able to exercise and not be seated sedentary throughout. Set boundaries. If you leave work, please leave work. Your phone cannot carry the email. You're at home. It is midnight and we are seeing your replies. When do you rest? When do you set the boundaries between home and work? And it should be okay. Even if I have a work phone, I can have it not on, or I don't respond to messages, and it should be understood, because I give work time and then I give family the time. Prioritize sleep. Sleep is very, very important. If you're not doing your 6 to 7 hours of sleep, you're not doing very well. So try to find how you will prioritize your sleep or work on your sleep debt. And saying no is a complete statement. Sometimes you don't have to take too much work until you're not able to have time for yourself, and you're staying too much time at work. Delegate. As a leader, sometimes you tend to feel there's no one who can do it better than me, and see, this overwhelms you. Learn how to delegate, because that's also the way you grow people who are below you. There are people who don't take leave days. Please take your leave days, go rest, and rest can be creative rest where you're reading a book, and be spiritual rest for those who like meditation. It can be physical rest where you just decide to sit and do nothing. So find a way how you're going to just disconnect from everyday hula baloo and find a way to reconnect with yourself. Seek therapy, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So thank you very much, and I take the meeting back to Jay. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Wow, that was mind blowing and very helpful indeed. I know that we have several takeaways from this conversation. And I'll be welcoming anyone with a question to just have the questions written in the chat section, or even unmute so that they can be able to share their issues, and Nancy can respond to that accordingly. Anyone with a question? How many of us carry work home? Nancy, I have a problem. For me, anytime I have my laptop, I must work. Anytime I'm in traffic, I must be working. So I don't know. Should I abandon my phones or leave them at work? Or I have Katululu? Nancy, are you there? Hello? Hello? Nancy, can you hear me? Sheila, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jay.
Or we've lost Nancy.
I think we've lost Nancy, but I can still see her on the chat. She's still here, but she's not able to communicate.
I think we can give her.
Oh, sorry, I dropped off. I've just come back, so I might have missed something. Sorry.
Oh, so I was asking,
Mm-hmm.
um, Personally, when I'm on my laptop, anytime I have my laptop on, like now, I find myself working. Anytime I'm in traffic, I'll find myself working. So I was asking, should I leave my phones at work, or should I leave them at home? Or should I have just a Katululu for me to be able to maybe control that?
Now, we all understand. First of all, you need to understand the nature of your job. Now, for people who are self-employed, they'll give you all the reasons why they could not leave that particular thing. But if you structure your day, you're able to tell the times you can't afford to not be available and the times that you absolutely need to set that time aside for something else. It could be for those activities. When will you go for your gym? When will you go for your meditation? When will you have time for your children? Because some of us have to check our children's assignments. So you carry your laptop if you have to, if it is not safe where it is. But the decision to open that laptop, it is a personal discipline. On this, at this particular point in time, whatever happens, I have been very disciplined during the day that I achieved the task I outlined for myself. This point, I am taking up somebody else's time. So that is very important. And that's why some people will always tell you, I don't put my work email on my phone, so that I'm able to not allow myself to, get tempted to reply. And then my daughter is talking to me and you're saying, just a minute, just a minute. Then before you realize, your daughter has gone to bed with your just a minute. So personal discipline.
Thank you so much for that. We have a question from Emily. What if someone left a job because of toxicity and it's going through emotional meltdown?
Now that's something that I encounter quite a lot, especially because of the pressures that come with places where you're not able to be supported well. And the moment you leave, the first thing you go through is withdrawal. You will definitely experience the withdrawal, the replaying of everything that happened, the how it made you feel, the probably how it has affected your self-esteem, the how it you make you hate yourself. You will definitely find yourself going through that meltdown. Now, while you are at it, the question is, how are you working around it? Because you've already stepped out, you've done a great job because you have chosen to leave the place. How are you working around that? I said you need to have someone because it's not always a therapy is going to be accessible or free. You need to have someone you're talking to, someone you trust that you can always just pour out to. Either they're the people who are very good in sharing, the others who just write their thoughts. So you got to deal with that emotional outlet. Let it come out. But in a way, if you need support, please also look for that support. If you have to take a nature walk or find a gym, anything that will make you distract yourself, but do not just stay. Do not isolate, because that means we are going to get another problem cropping up from the main problem.
Thank you so much for that. I'm so much messed up with work that I don't know what to do during my leave days. Sometimes I feel disconnected outside work. How can I come back to reality?
Now, usually I like not generalizing situations, because case by case. When you go for leave, what is the problem when you're away from work? Is it that you feel that the people, now I'm looking at it from very different perspective. If you're a leader, do you feel like nobody else is able to perform the work better than you do? So you're thinking you'll either find a backlog or things going wrong, so you're just anxious. If you're not a leader, what is the problem? Do you feel like you're going to be replaced? Do you feel like your role is going to be taken? Do you think they're likely to say we are actually having a redundancy? What is that fear? Is the fear something to do with your environment at home, that you're just thinking, being in this house is going to be more chaotic than being at work, because maybe your partner doesn't work, so the two of you being around is like the COVID time where it made people realize we don't know each other. So you need to assess what exactly is happening in your environment that making you feel the chaos, because the chaos has to be attributed to something, and that is what you need now to identify and start working on. If the fear is of you being at home, then whatever is happening at home, you can't keep running away from it. Those are the things that we're saying. Find a way to work on them. If you have to speak to somebody professionally or otherwise, start addressing them. If it is about you're not able to step away and let people be, then there is a problem in your delegation. Just allow yourself to break away. Some of us who are also very good leaders here, even that Saturday, you're not supposed to go home. You sleeping, you feel like, oh my God, people will think I'm lazy. Sometimes let your body heal, because the rest is about rejuvenating. It's not about idling, because tomorrow we still need that healthy you to carry on with the tasks. So check what are the issues causing the chaos. There must be, if you're able to identify that, that's a very good place to begin.
Thank you so much for that. What happens? Before that, how does one deal with? How do you deal with a leader who does not incorporate teamwork? She does all the work by herself, emails you at night, holidays, bombard you with duties, and does all of that by herself. At the end of it, does not welcome opinions, throws shades to her subjects in office jokingly or sarcastically, just makes the whole work environment uncomfortable. How do you cope with such?
Now, before we cope, the question would be, does the workplace allow for conversations? Because there's what we call the team meetings, where we give feedback. Because remember, all of us are capable of being that particular leader, where I've said there are people who feel nobody else can do the work they can. So even delegating, they delegate and take back. So sometimes they can be very confusing. And they will call you even when you're not supposed to be at work and give you work. They don't have boundaries. So yourself first. How safe is your work environment that you can actually sit and say, I am not available from this time. So whatever is needed to be done, I'll do in this time. So are there work meetings that allow for that kind of feedback? Are there channels that allow you to give that feedback in a way that it does not affect you? Remember, at the end of the day, whatever you do, you need to ask, where is your safety net first, and then you act. Again, sometimes some of these leaders you just need to meet, ask them for a meeting and ask them, I would want to meet you. Some will be very positive, others may not be very positive, but you must take that first step of do something. You can communicate directly, or you can use a trusted other person who can tell them how that makes you feel. Sometimes it may not always work the way you expect it to work. So always be open minded that they may actually now even want to punish you even more if the work systems don't allow you to get more reprieve elsewhere. If the HR is able to come through and support, you can utilize all the avenues that are there. But always remember, you must be also in good state of you not being seen like you don't perform or you're always complaining. But always remember, some of these suggestions may not always work because workplace cultures vary from place to place. So try first, see if you can speak to them, channel the information through there's are people who give those boxes where you give suggestion. Sometimes you can use another manager who listens to them. Somehow there will always be somebody who listens to them. If it is not working, then just know you can always grow outside if that cannot continue, or always just know it's not always going to be finding a solution, because cultures are very, very particular to our places.
Yes, I experienced sexual harassment that made me quit before end of my third month. This is really affecting me right now. What advice can you give to me?
No, not really advice, but the part of how that it's affecting her right now, she probably may need to speak to a trusted person so that it doesn't, I don't know how old they are, but so that it doesn't affect them in the outlook of how they perceive also relationship, and even in the next job, particularly if the next job still has a similar gender to the one that made her experience this kind of harassment. Some of these things leave lasting impressions. So just speak it out so that it doesn't form a part of the opinions that you might shape going forward. Sometimes I don't take these issues lightly because some of us are coming from historical such abuses, and it just reawakens some of those memories. So that's why I'm saying I don't know her story beyond that, but if she would want to unpack, I wouldn't mind helping her unpack.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for that. Rachel, I think you can reach out. I'll be sharing Nancy's contact. Then, what happens when the HR responds to the patient? In this case, the employee in a harsh tone, instead of implementing the recommendations suggest, suggested by the doctor for the employee to be supported to heal from the mental disturbances she's undergoing at the workplace.
Well, this sounds very sad to hear because you can imagine the HR being the heartbeat of where employees are supposed to find most of their help. This could almost feel feeling between catch 22 situation. Why? Because I know that we have had to write letters to some workplaces to for a client, I mean for an employee to be moved from one department or station to another because they got admitted because the workplace was so toxic that, for example, let me just give an example so that I put a case in point as I answer Petronilla. I'm not minimizing your experience. Um, this lady who has always been diligently doing her work, she would present those papers that we present at the board level. She was trusted to do that work, and she was very good at it, such that every time the director requires her support, she prepares very good packs and she would present. Now, it got to a point where sometimes in those meetings, she would be called out. Like, you didn't think through that. Why could you do such something silly? Those words which I said are sometimes very uncomfortable. And it got to a point where she started developing anxiety. So she's going for those meetings. She knows her work so well, but the day of the meeting, she just becomes panicky, anxious, even forgetting the obvious. She ended up getting admitted after such a meeting, and after we recommended for a change of department, and before that could happen, the of course, because of the handover, she was requested to do another meeting because nobody was accepting to be even given the handover. Everyone in the office was being recommended for that post, was refusing to come for. So there's a meeting that needs to happen before she could move. And that day when she was given that meeting to do, she collapsed. Like her whole body refused to be present to that meeting because it just brought back all those flooding memories of how she was called out, made to feel so little and dehumanized. Now, if we don't move that kind of a person, you're going to lose them, and you're going to have somebody say on medical grounds, and that you can tell that person didn't actually was not sick. Or another thing, you'll be told you're not performing, definitely you're not going to perform. So for a HR to refuse such a move, and being that that is the only place this can be taken, if the corporate is very human centric, an escalation can help to have it navigated. If an escalation means your job is at risk, it's quite unfortunate. So, what can you navigate? How is your workplace culture looking like? Does it allow for escalations, which you can? Does it allow that you can ask your own boss to present it to the HR directly if there's someone who is in between you? Try to look for those avenues if they can work. If the person doesn't want to allow you, then already know there's a problem and you need to choose what is right for yourself, even when we know we're in a very difficult situations.
Thank you. I think we are past time, and I can see that you've been able to exhaust all the questions. Someone is asking for your number. Is it okay we share it in the chat, or you'll share it, Nancy? You can share your number in the chat section.
There, I have typed it there. Thanks.
Sawa. If there's no other question, I take the program back to Sheila. Sheila, you there? Daniel?
Yes, I'm here, Jay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nancy.